Wavelength.
You know, Adelaide has worked really hard over the last few years to build a small bar reputation. When I was a kid, the big night in Adelaide was kind of, staying at home and watching the bill.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide.
As a female Sparky, I did get lots of comments on my gender.
You should be having...
And here to make a difference. Yeah, make the difference. Give the youth a voice.
On Fresh 92.7.
Welcome to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having with Zane and David. He has returned.
I have returned. It feels like an eternity since I've been gone, actually.
You've been gone for a week and a half, and that... I see you several times a week. This feels weird.
Did you miss me, Zane?
Yeah, I did.
Aw, thank you.
Wasn't the same.
Aww.
Producer Jack held down the fort, though. Of course, you can hear our episode last week on your favourite podcast app. But let's get stuck into this week's show. Some exciting convos ahead.
Yep, but first today, everyone's talking about how a man has been arrested after allegedly indecently assaulting a child in Rundle Mall over the weekend. The 38-year-old who was arrested at the scene has been denied bail after police allegedly discovered child exploitation material in his home. The owners of the Mansfield Park Hotel have been charged with allowing too much cash to be withdrawn via FPOS to be used at the pokie machines. The charge, which is the first of its kind in South Australia, comes just after the government announced it is looking to expand pokie reforms to allow the machines to accept notes and allowing them to be used on Christmas Day and Good Friday. And it looks like an Adelaide Crows midfielder will be heading north to the Gold Coast Suns. Hugh Greenwood is reportedly on the verge of penning a deal with the Suns and would mean he joins Cam Ellis-Yeoman in Queensland next year.
Who's going to be left in the Crows at the end of all of this is what I want to know.
Absolutely nobody.
I've taken a real interest in this actually as of late because I went to the Samford Grand Final a couple of weeks ago and then I started doing the news on Friday, so I'm forced to look into sport.
Yeah.
And so now suddenly I'm like really interested in like, what's going to happen with the Crows?
You understand it now. You understand why people like sport.
Kind of. Yeah. What's happened to me? Tonight on the show, how can we live more sustainably? We've changed our shopping bags, our coffee cups, and even our straws. So tonight we are having a convo about what else we can change. We'll introduce you to the woman on a mission to make sure you can hire a beautiful dress no matter your size. And next, costumes, crazy names, the odd blood nose. We profile the robust sports scene you may not have known about here in Adelaide.
Wavelength.
Zane, when was the last time you put on roller skates?
I know the answer seems like never, but I can tell you it was year 11 at the Ingle Farm Community Centre where they used to possibly still run roller skating nights and me and my friends all met.
That is a throwback.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I am surprisingly decent at roller skates and ice skating for someone who is otherwise not balanced or coordinated at all.
That's impressive. I would not have picked it. Ever in my whole life.
I know.
Zane, you might be surprised to find out that roller skates are actually at the heart of a thriving sports scene here in Adelaide involving colourful costumes, nicknames and blood noses.
I am sold. Here is Adrian with a profile of Adelaide's roller derby scene.
Wavelength.
Roller derby is a contact sport played by two teams of 5 members roller skating anti-clockwise around a track. It is played by approximately 1,250 amateur leagues across the world, including several here in Adelaide. I got to speak to Lady and Heidi, who tell me what attracted them to join a roller derby team.
I always liked skating. I loved roller skating always, ever since I was a kid. I first saw roller derby, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, and just thought it was really cool. Thought that I was too small to play. I was like, I'm going to get killed, so I never did. And then I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do it. And yeah, never once regretted doing it.
Yeah, I would say a love of skating initially. And then a friend said, oh, I really like skating. I wish I could do a sport with skating. And he said, oh, why don't you play roller derby? And I was like, okay. Had no idea what it was. But emailed a league and they said, oh, our fresh meet starts tonight. I was like, all right, I'll buy some skates that fit me. And yeah, the rest is history.
Here in Adelaide, there are several leagues, aren't they?
Yes.
So how does it work?
Okay, so we have our Murder City is a women's plus league. So we accept anyone who identifies as female, whether that's transgender, cisgender, non-binary, yeah, that whole spectrum. There are mixed gender leagues and there's also junior leagues as well.
So we know it's physically challenging to play roller derby, and as you've mentioned, it's a contact sport. Have you, either of you, ever injured yourself playing?
I've gotten some really good derby kisses. Derby kisses is our affectionate term for little bruises and bumps that you get from falling on your bum or having a skate knock into your shin or something like that.
And we go through a lot of stuff in our training for injury prevention. Even just in our warm-ups and stuff, we do stuff, to prevent concussions in your first kind of raw stages. You do a lot of training about how to fall correctly so that you can prevent an injury and stuff like that. So we're pretty big on the safeties.
What's the story behind derby names? Do all players get one?
Most players take a derby name. I know a couple of people that have chosen not to. They go by their real name. But yeah, mostly it's just like a fun... I think with roller derby you can take on a different persona from your everyday life to your on-track persona. So I think sometimes that helps you get into that mindset on track. Like, yeah, okay, now I'm here, I'm in my uniform, I'm all geared up. Today I'm Killer Heidi.
Would you say roller derby is increasing in popularity, and if so, what chances are there for roller derby to become like a professional sport? Maybe get into the Olympics or something? What are the chances?
I would love to see roller derby in the Olympics.
I think at the moment there's a bit of a resurgence of skating sports in general. So I think, so go back like 10 years ago when Whippet came out, and that's kind of when it kind of hit Australia quite big. It got this huge, oh my God, roller derby, and everyone got involved. And then it kind of had a bit of a slump. But now, for whatever reason, it seems like roller skating in general is really popular again, skateboarding even.
I think extreme sports are more of a feature on the world stage with things like the Olympics doing, what do they do, like skateboarding?
So I don't think it's completely unrealistic to think that roller derby could become, could go that way.
The grassroots of roller derby are really promising at the moment, definitely.
Wavelength.
That was Adrian profiling Adelaide's roller derby scene, which is an incredibly robust scene happening here in Adelaide. There's so much going on, and it's really cool to be able to profile and introduce people to this huge sporting culture that they might not know about.
And hopefully maybe even join up.
Exactly.
Maybe
and go
we've
along and
convinced some
support
people.
Can we talk about Whippet coming out 10 years ago, though?
That threw me. That threw me into the deep end of being terrified about aging.
Oh, this happens to me on a regular basis. Welcome to your mid-20s, David. I know. I was actually trying to remember that movie to work it into the intro somehow.
Ellen Page.
I just kept thinking of Blades of Glory. I was like, what was the Blades of Glory but without the ice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to see rollerblading in the Olympics. Maybe it would get me to watch it.
You should just watch the Adelaide ones. It sounds plenty interesting as it is.
Let's go. Let's go to one.
Wavelength.
David, you were away last week. It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Andrew also absent last week due to illness, so we've just got the whole gang back together.
Finally, it feels like a big happy family once again.
I know. Jack can be really grating after a while if he's just by himself.
That's so
I'm
hard.
joking, Jack. No need to make that hand gesture through the window. Let's go to Andrew to find out what the hell is going on in politics at the moment.
What the hell is going on in politics at the moment? Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Well, the ACT's done it again, this week defying the federal government by legalising cannabis for personal use. The laws, which allow people to possess a small amount of cannabis and grow 2 plants, won't come into effect until the end of January next year. However, the federal government has had a mixed reaction, some ministers saying they might consider intervening, and others just expressing their concern. Meanwhile, it's been a hell of a week for Swedish teen Greta Thunberg, who gave an emotional speech to the United Nations on climate change. The teenager condemned world leaders for their inaction on the climate crisis, but PM Scott Morrison reckons Australia's action on climate change is just fine, and that we shouldn't be giving kids anxiety over the issue. Documentary legend David Attenborough also weighed in, criticising Australia for its climate inaction. And in another international story, Donald Trump could potentially find himself on the chopping block. The US president allegedly asked the Ukrainian president to look into Democratic candidate for President Joe Biden and his son, reportedly implying he could freeze aid to Ukraine if they didn't help out. The US opposition says they're now launching an impeachment inquiry, which could see Trump out of office. Will it actually happen though? Only time will tell. And that's what the hell is going on in politics this week.
Thank you, Andrew, every week letting us know what the hell is going on in politics at the moment. ACT legalising marijuana.
Oh, that was a big one, wasn't it?
That is huge. And I feel like, okay, so this is what happens every time the ACT try to do something. Because they're a territory and not a state.
They can't do anything.
No, the federal government can basically overrule them really easily, whereas if a state wanted to do something, it's a lot harder for the federal government to get involved and actually overrule us.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, I think Peter Dutton, if I'm not...
He's
incorrect,
so anti.
I'm pretty sure he's already said that he's going to, like, knock it down. But, I mean, if it is anything, I think it's a sign that maybe Australia is progressively moving towards legalising cannabis for recreational use, which I think is cool. But the other thing is, I'm pretty sure the ACT tried to like legalise same-sex marriage a while ago.
They did. I was about to bring this up.
Way before it happened.
Yeah, and they got stomped down by the government.
So I think that the ACT maybe is like some sort of cultural barometer or something in a weird way.
If it happens in Canberra, it is bound to roll out elsewhere.
Right.
Finally in Queensland.
But they do have a really, they have like a lot of Greens members in the parliament in the ACT compared to the rest of the country.
They also just generally have a lot of like millennial and Gen X, like quite well-off public servant. Like their demographic is reasonably progressive overall because there's just a lot of quite,
and
you know.
What else are you going to be doing in Canberra? I mean, apart from lying around, 420.
We are moving on.
Wavelength.
Many of us have adopted ways to live more sustainably and reduce our impact on the environment. We've replaced our shopping bags, our coffee cups, and even our straws. But what else can we do as individuals to lead more sustainable lives?
So, a bit later in the show, we are going to hear from a local business who is trying to make your clothing as sustainable as possible. But right now, we are going to listen to Anthony's convo with an expert about just how sustainable our current lives are.
Wavelength.
Coming off the back of the climate strikes just over a week ago, it is clear that the conservation of our environment is now the number one priority on the majority of minds. More and more people are now transitioning to using keep cups, cycling to work, and even boycotting plastic altogether. But in a country with the largest animal extinction rate in the world, are we really doing enough? And what are the most important steps we should be taking to ensure we are acting in the best interests of the planet? I spoke to Associate Professor of Ecology David Payton to investigate just how sustainable the Australian lifestyle is.
Australians have an estimated ecological footprint of about 7 hectares. The world could cope with all the people in it now if nobody went above 2 hectares. Now, the question might come, what is someone's ecological footprint? Well, one's ecological footprint are all the resources one needs to live one's life. And so that includes the water you might use, it includes the material possessions that you need, includes your food, your utilities, and that's not just the fact that you're getting gas and electricity and so forth delivered to your home. It's also all the infrastructure that enables that to be delivered and its generation. And it's also about how we sort of heat our homes and how we use our clothes and how often we use our clothes. All of those things come into be someone's ecological footprint.
What are some of the ways in which we can individually reduce our ecological footprint?
There are a range of things that people can do. You could think about where you source your food. You could think about, walking some places or using bikes and other transport. But even if you do those things, it doesn't make much of a difference to your footprint. One of the dilemmas we've done for Earth, which makes it very hard for wildlife to survive, is that we've used so much of the surface of the Earth for supporting humans. So it's all the agricultural fields we have to grow our food. When we've produced all that food and cleared all that land, we've left the little bits of remnant that are left for biodiversity, and that biodiversity then struggles to survive because it doesn't have enough habitat. If you really want to offset one's ecological footprint and take it back to 2 hectares, then the first thing we should be doing is saying we need to repair the damage. I'd actually say probably the best thing we could do is just to pay to actually have someone put back good quality habitat for wildlife into the future. People often offset their carbon footprint, and one of the tasks for doing that is just planting trees. Often that's a single species plantation, not very good for biodiversity. Why don't we pay a little bit more to build complex habitats that support wildlife? They're likely to be self-sustaining, and we start to build a landscape that will both support human endeavours going forward, but also keep some of those other assets in place, like our biodiversity, for future generations to be engaged with. If you talked about what it might cost to offset someone's ecological footprint, it's actually a relatively small sum of money. It's about $1 a day. And if you put that into some fund donated to various organisations that might put back habitat.
What are some of the alternatives we can pursue outside of donating money?
As humans, we've often had, I think, a natural connection to nature. You often notice the young kids, they're fascinated by nature. They'll even be fascinated by a little ant trail and so forth. And I think innately we've always had this sort of connection to nature, but we've largely lost that connection to the natural bush in Australia. Many people now live in cities and they rarely venture out into the bush, and their lives are very busy. But I actually think one of the key things in terms of trying to get the community to actually own the restoration of landscapes as a consequence of their ecological footprints, they need to start connecting back to nature. And I think one of the first things we should be doing is trying to find ways in which people can actually spend some quality time back in natural systems, be it bushwalking, be it doing other things. You sort of build a love for it, and once you've got a love for something, then you'll look after it going forward. And we need to get back to that level to then convince governments to really invest in finding solutions for our ecological footprints, which are the fundamentals that drive climate change as well.
Wavelength.
Anthony there, having a convo about how sustainable our lives are and what we can do to make them more sustainable.
Right.
Which is the key question we're asking tonight. How can we live a little bit more sustainably? And we're about to throw it open to everyone. It is a huge conversation to get stuck into, though, particularly in light of the climate strikes that we had, the real landmark Greta Thunberg speech that I think everyone has heard by now as well.
Yeah, it went so viral.
Incredible. So there's obviously like a lot of pressure coming from the strikes and all of those associated movements to really get governments to act for sustainability, for climate change. Tonight, specifically, we want to talk about what we can do in our own lives. We're talking about the fact that we've changed our coffee cups to keep cups. In a lot of cases, we've changed our shopping bags. We were ahead of the curve on that.
We sure were, like years ahead.
So far ahead.
Almost a decade, I think.
When all the eastern suburbs, eastern states, when all the eastern states were complaining about it, we were just sitting here like, what? It's not that bad.
It was so
The sky
easy
will
as
not
well.
fall in if you have to bring a Calico bag to Woolworths.
And it didn't. And I haven't heard a peep about that since.
Exactly.
Wavelength.
We're chatting about how we can live our lives more sustainably, and we want to hear from you listening what you do to make your impact on the environment just that little bit smaller.
Yeah.
We've got Dan on the line. Dan, you are a plumber and you found some really interesting ways of making your own practice a little bit more sustainable. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly have. Yeah, myself, my father, and my father-in-law and my wife run frog plumbing, and we've researched and implemented a lot of different methods to reduce our footprint. So,
could you tell us about a couple of them really briefly?
Yeah, so pretty briefly, recycling a lot. We do everything that comes through frog plumbing, and also our personal waste actually gets sorted into a lot of different areas, and then we actually take that directly to the places that need to that use the stuff and recycle the stuff, rather than putting it in the yellow bin or relying on other people to do it. So.
Yeah.
So Dan, I'm really interested in why you decided to take this approach.
I was brought up in a quite interesting family where my father is actually a Dutch thinker. He does a lot of thinking, and it was just a natural progression when I started with frog plumbing. I saw how much waste was being discarded, and they were actually sorting already for the monetary value of precious metals and alike, and it was just a natural progression to sort the rest of the materials as much as possible to make sure that stuff didn't end up in landfill, which is pretty terrible for the environment.
Totally.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. And hopefully you are leading the way by example and setting the example for the plumbing industry, because so many industries need those people at the forefront to lead the way, innovate, and create ways of being a lot more sustainable.
And it seems like Dan definitely is, but got to recycle. That's definitely one of those things.
Yes.
Also, one weird thing like that I know my mum does, just soft plastics, like you peel off, like a plastic thing, just like any
like a label or something.
Yeah, you can recycle all that. You can just take it to Coles and they'll take it for you. So that's like another really, I didn't know that about recycling. I always thought it was just cardboard,
Nice.
But
nice.
So many different things you can do.
We want to know what you do to make your footprint a little bit more sustainable on the earth. Producer Jack has echoed the sentiments of a text we got in, which is to go vegan. And I knew this was going to come up. It has the greatest impact on sustainability, says 294, the best thing an individual can do for the planet and its inhabitants. And that's not the first time I have heard that.
Yeah,
Because-
well, it's definitely it's kind of true in a way. Definitely, animal agriculture has a massive impact on.
Oh yeah, beef
so
in
many-
particular has a really bad sustainable footprint. The gases that they emit into the air is crazy.
Mhm.
You are a vegetarian, David. Is there a sustainability reason behind that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to tell people that they need to stop eating meat altogether. Like, that's totally your choice, but it was one of the reasons why I did, and I definitely feel a lot better for it. But even just like reducing how much meat you eat on a daily basis, you don't need it for every meal, and you can be healthy. I mean, I'm not dead yet, so I'm clearly doing something right still.
I just don't know if I'm prepared.
I'll
to
do
give
it.
up.
I'll get you there one day, Zane. I know I will.
1300 73 73 74. We want to hear from you. What do you do to live your life a little bit more sustainably? Right now, let's throw to Luca to find out what the hell is going on in sport at the moment.
What the hell is going on in sports at the moment? Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
For the last time this year, we kick things off with football, where the Richmond Tigers claimed the 2019 AFL Premiership flag on Saturday after dismantling first-time grand finalists, the Greater Western Sydney Giants, by a whopping 89 points. Richmond spearhead and AFL bad boy Dustin Martin created history by becoming the fourth player to win multiple Norm Smith medals and the first player to do so with a Brownlow medal under their belt. More locally, and the Glenelg Tigers have broken a 33-year club drought and claimed the SANFL Premiership flag 2 weekends ago by beating rivals Port Adelaide Magpies 73 points to 45 at Adelaide Oval. Over to basketball, and the Australian Opals have claimed bronze in the FIBA Women's Asian Cup after a comfortable 98 to 62 point win over South Korea, with Japan claiming a historic fourth consecutive gold medal over silver medalists China. More locally now, and the Adelaide 36ers boss Ben Kavanagh says the success of Friday night's opening pre-season game at the Entertainment Centre exceeded the club's wildest estimations. A crowd of 6,366 turned out to the Sixers housewarming at its new venue, a massive 5,000 more than the second best pre-season crowd game this year. Despite Melbourne United crashing the party with a 100 to 91 point win, Kavanagh said it took none of the gloss off the historic night for the club. The move mimics the AFL's move into the city and is set to bring major revenue for both the sport and the state. Lastly, Finland is quickly becoming the global king of unusual hobbies and wacky sports, with everything from air guitar championships to mobile phone throwing. But one emerging subculture that some are finding particularly confusing is the latest Finnish trend in hobby horsing, using toy horse heads on sticks to imitate real equestrian events, such as dressage and show jumping. It has become so popular that it is starting to spread to other Nordic nations and now has an official hobby horsing world championship. There are now an estimated 10,000 registered stick horse enthusiasts in Finland and could be coming to a broom closet near you. And that is what the hell is going on in sports at the moment.
Wavelength.
We're talking about what you do to live your life a little bit more sustainably. We're about to hear from a local business who works to make clothing as sustainable as possible and tries to create sustainable clothing for you to buy.
Okay.
But we've been hearing your advice, your tips, your little life hacks and things that you do to lessen your impact on the environment. We've got Cara. Cara, how do you try to lessen your impact on the environment?
Well, for a start, I try to reduce all my plastics, and this is the argument I have with my vegan friends all the time. I'm like, what are your shoes made of? Oh, they're made of polyurethane. Well, that's plastic. What are your clothes made of? Oh, they're a cotton poly blend. That's plastic. And so I say to them, stop using plastic. And they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, use hemp.
Hemp? How does that... So you can have
hemp
in everything?
Hemp is the miracle. It is the miracle thing. It grows fast without too much water. You can grow it without any THC in it. So you're not going to sit there smoking up your cotton T-shirt, well, your hemp T-shirt.
That's always a stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. You grow it without THC. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The fibres can be made as soft as cotton or as hard as flax. So you can use it from anything from babies' nappies right through to, garbage bags. It's completely washable, completely reusable. As I said, it grows really fast. And I have a hemp skirt that my grandmother had from 1936 that has no holes. The stitching was all hemp. The stitching's perfect. It is strong. It is durable. It looks exactly the same as the day it was made.
You have convinced me, Cara. I am sold. I am converting to hemp.
How easy is hemp to get a hold of?
It really depends on where you're looking. I mean, you can get it for body products, which, again, it's amazing for as well. So a lot of the health food shops have it for body products. You can order it from overseas. So a lot of the Scandinavian countries will actually sell you reams and rolls of hemp so you can make your own clothes. And you can get it in different solidification, sorry. So you can use it for like the soles of shoes. If it's been fired together and then solidified, you can actually use it for solid things like that. So soles of shoes, steering wheel covers, you know, anything that you can use light plastics for.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
You just order it online. If we had a more progressive state government, we could be growing it instead of growing the oodles and oodles of pine trees we do in the forest. But, maybe that's something in the future.
Maybe one day. Cara, thank you so much for sharing. Danielle, you are all about teaching other people how to be sustainable.
Yes, I am. So I'm a personal stylist, and in particular, I love conducting wardrobe edits with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is I basically teach them how to look at the pieces that they've got in their wardrobe and make multiple outfits from that, rather than going and continuously buying pieces, especially the fast fashion stuff. I'm against that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all about, you know, good investment pieces, quality pieces that they can wear time and time again and really get value for money out of it, as well as saving the planet. Unfortunately, the fashion industry is, one of the most probably unsustainable industries at the moment.
Well, yes, and that is the key thrust behind the part 2 of the story we're about to go into, and the business, which is one of many that we've profiled, which tries to make sustainable clothing. But you, as I understand, also actually teach your clients how to create their own clothing.
Not clothing so much, but the outfits from what they have.
Right, yes, I see.
How they could edit their pieces, for sure. So they give them new life.
Yeah. Now that's so important, because if just going out and buying a new thing every time you're going out somewhere is just, it gets a bit ridiculous. Who cares if you just don't Instagram it?
If you support the likes of those who are making, multiple thousands of pieces, then they're just going to keep going. And it's crap, because they wash them and they're no good.
Well, exactly. Like you buy a $10 T-shirt from like some big store, and it looks great for a couple of months, and then you've chucked it out because it's worn out, and that cycle just repeats itself, ends up in landfill. That segues very nicely into part 2 of our main story tonight, in which Nick has done an interview with a very, very interesting business. So obviously, as we've discussed, clothing is a real problem with sustainability. It could be affecting the planet and its people a lot worse than you thought. So Nick caught up with an Adelaide business, one of many I should add, which is on a mission to change that.
Wavelength.
Last week, the world saw 4 million people protesting for immediate climate change and reform, including 10,000 closer to home here in Adelaide. It's clear we as a nation, city and community need change, and striking is a good first step. But what about those of us who have gone one bit further and found a way to make a difference? Lauren Crago, owner of Solomon Street, a sustainable clothing company here in Adelaide, sat down with us to tell us how her business leaves its mark by not leaving a mark on our environment.
So sustainability for Solomon Street, it enters every part of the business. We always use natural fibres in our production. I'll use organic cotton and hemp. There are a few limitations when it comes to manufacturing, mainly being so small. We also manufacture within Australia, so always trying to conserve any miles that the fabric can have to travel, so we try and keep it as local as possible. But then again, some things are better produced internationally. Or getting cotton grown in Australia is far less sustainable than growing it in China, because they have the water there to be able to produce it. We also encourage people to really think about how they're purchasing. So our pieces are meant to be hero pieces in people's wardrobes that they'll use for a really long time and wear time and time again, so that you're not purchasing heaps and heaps of clothes, contributing to landfill, and also supporting fast fashion, which is what we don't want to do.
Lauren says the goals of Solomon Street extend beyond just growing her business and remaining sustainable. Set up as a social enterprise, Solomon Street was established with the main objective of helping others. Pooling their funds, Solomon Street creates microloans to help women looking to start their own businesses.
the more clothes we're able to sell and the more profit we're able to make, rather than that profit going into shareholders' pockets, it means that it's going to helping other women do the same thing as me. And we help women who are experiencing poverty in developed nations and in Australia. So it's kind of a way to really invest in them and invest in their dreams. Every day we're trying to become more sustainable and create things more ethically while still trying to run a financially sustainable business.
Lauren says another key to helping maintain standards on clothing production is the traceability and transparency of what we buy.
Of fabric that is completely traceable, which means that we can see exactly who has grown the organic cotton fibre, who's farmed it, who's processed it, who's then woven it. With transparency comes a lot of ethical standards, including sustainability standards. So that means that factories will be trying to reduce their carbon footprint and treat their workers better if they know that they are being watched and that we can see exactly what's happening.
So we've all heard the data that going vegetarian is one of the scientifically proven best ways of helping the environment. Then we have the trendy options like keep cups and boycotting plastic straws. But what small things can we do in our day-to-day lives to help?
It's difficult as consumers trying to be sustainable because there are so many things that you can do. But I think the overriding idea is just being really conscious of what you bring into your life. I think especially living in such an affluent country, it's very easy for us to be in the mindset of once we purchase something to think, oh, I can just throw it away and I won't have to see it again. Everything that is made in the world stays in the world unless it can be biodegraded or recycled into something. So every single piece of plastic you've ever used still exists. It is difficult because a lot of more sustainable options buying new can be very expensive. So the approach that I kind of use is your really strong core items like a kitchen table or like maybe a good suit. Spend that extra money to buy something that is going to last and just be conscious of trends. I like to say that trends come and go, but style is forever.
Wavelength.
That was Nick chatting to Lauren Crago behind Solomon Street, one of a few businesses in Adelaide who are trying to make sustainable clothing that reduces the impact on the environment.
Amazing work, hey?
Wavelength.
We've been talking about sustainability. We do have to wrap that convo up, but we've gotten some super interesting texts from people explaining how you live your life a little bit more sustainably.
We got one from a comment actually on Instagram from Ministry Art saying saying that she uses bamboo toothbrushes, avoids polyester clothing, buys personal hygiene products in 100% recycled bottles.
Text from John on a kind of similar vein. Catch and store your own rainwater, put solar panels on your house, be wise with your power use, grow a garden, and collect your own food as much as possible as well, which all checks out. If you can do any of that, you're making a little bit of a difference.
Totally.
This next text was in reference to the first part of our story where Anthony was talking to that expert who was saying we should get out in nature more and we should appreciate the environment and then we might be more inclined to take care of it.
So true.
He said, this text said, we've lost connection with the environment. We need to rebuild the habitats that we have destroyed.
Yep. And our last text we got about an organisation called BioR, which is apparently an organisation that rebuilds habitats. One of the many ways we can give money to, as well as just caring about plastic use. So if you're interested in donating to some organisations, there's plenty out there that are doing this kind of work.
Definitely. BioR is actually who Anthony told me to give a shout out to at the end of that story, and I totally forgot to put it in the run sheet. So I'm so glad that someone texted. Thank you very much. Our last story for tonight here on Wavelength. If you're looking to hire a dress for a special occasion, you might find it very difficult to find something nice unless you're within a certain size range. Kelly has spoken to one woman on a mission to make sure that you can hire something beautiful no matter your size.
Wavelength.
I'm here today with founder of 808 Threads, Alexia Frangos, who is Australia's only curvy hire business, offering sizes 12 to 22. She's based here in Adelaide and is really making quite a groundbreaking movement for the industry.
Thanks, Kelly. I guess 808 Threads means body positive dress hire for women around Australia. We're the first to do it, and we are obviously based in Adelaide and take appointments for our clients based here, or we can ship interstate. Why we started 808 is because there was nowhere else doing dress hire in Australia. So I went to look for my own dress for an occasion a few years ago and found it really difficult being a size 12 back then. I guess now I'm able to provide women with the sizes that I wasn't able to find when I was younger. I'm not really sure why it's taken so long and it's taken me to have to fill this niche, and we are still 2 years in without a competitor. I just find it really interesting, and it's a testament to how difficult it is for women past the size 14 to find clothing in Australia and find the right sizes that suit them. But luckily now more brands are launching curvy ranges and starting to realise that, you know, curvy women from any size do need to dress up and we deserve to feel great about ourselves. I think what we're trying to achieve is telling women that they are beautiful no matter what size they are, no matter what shape their body is, however you have hip dips or, you know, rolls or bigger boobs or smaller boobs or, you know, height, you're beautiful no matter what.
Wavelength.
That was Kelly chatting to 808 Threads. You can find them on 808threads.com.au or sus808threads on Insta if you are interested in being able to hire a dress that basically will fit you and will look amazing no matter your size.
Right, makes perfect sense. There should be more services like that out there, and I love that it's from Adelaide.
Exactly. It can just be so hard to find something that's actually decent. It's like, yeah, there are offerings, but they're not good.
Right, exactly. So doing God's work there, Kelly. Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of tonight's show. Awesome show. This has been really fun and really interesting.
Yeah.
We've heard so many different suggestions from people about how they live sustainably. We also profiled Adelaide's roller derby scene, which feels like a long time ago now.
Yeah, I know. It feels like 10 years ago. But if you have missed anything in tonight's show or you want to just listen again, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere.
Wavelength.